Hello, I'm Vince Patton, the 8th Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard and your Chief of the Mess for the National Coast Guard Museum. I'd like to start off by telling you just a little story. 48 years ago this year, I enlisted in the U.S. Coast Guard. Well, as you look at me, you can see I don't look a day over 49, right? But the point of the story is to tell you that it was history that got me interested in the Coast Guard. Well, let me tell you what happened. When I walked into the Coast Guard recruiting office in downtown Detroit, Michigan, and that's another story how I ended up walking into the recruiting office in the beginning. The recruiter was on the phone, and while I was waiting for him to get off the phone, I walked around the office and began to look at the fascinating pictures that were hanging up, all depicting different things about the Coast Guard. I came across a unit commendation that was hanging up where one of the recruiters happened to be involved with one of, I think, the greatest search and rescue cases the Coast Guard has ever been involved with. In fact, Disney made a movie out of it a few years ago called The Finest Hours. It's the story of the rescue that occurred with the SS Pendleton and the SS Fort Mercer off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Well, let me tell you, when I read that citation, it read like a novel. And I was so involved as I was reading it that I whispered, "Wow," when I finished reading it. The recruiter happened to hear me and looked up from his phone and said to me, "I guarantee you'll have one of those in your first 4 years in the Coast Guard." And that's why I joined, honest to goodness. But the point of the story is about the history part, because that's what drew me into the Coast Guard. And over the years, from my 30 years of active service as well as the 18 years in retirement, I have been just involved with reading so much about our Coast Guard history. And we have a lot of stories beside the story that happened in Cape Cod, Massachusetts in 1952. And these are stories that our American public needs to know. This is the reason why we're building our National Coast Guard Museum. Our Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Carl Schultz, said, "Our nation richly deserves a National Coast Guard Museum in which to honor the heritage and service of United States Coast Guard men and women, and to inspire our next generation of problem solvers, innovators, and critical thinkers." Well, that's what our Coast Guard Museum will be. It'll be to draw in not just our future coasties, but also to tell our story to the American public, to show the contributions that our service has made in American history. So please join me to become part of an investor to our National Coast Guard Museum by becoming a plank owner member. Very easy to do. Go to our website at www.coastguardmuseum.org/plank owner. And all the information that you need to know is on that website. You can give as little as $5 a month or more, and by the way, it's tax deductible. So please become a member of the National Coast Guard Museum. Become a member and an investor to our National Coast Guard Museum. Who knows? A few years from now, after the museum is built, that some young man or young lady will walk in and look at the various different things about the Coast Guard and the history of it, and they too may say, "Wow." Thank you for listening, and please go to our website and find out more about our Plank Owner program. God bless you all, and Semper Paratus.